read horror stories of people with this cancer. Betsy was terrified, and so were we.
Different doctors said different things, really horrific, terrible things.
She was just scared. She was scared the cancer was coming back, and that was really scary.
There's still a strong possibility that this is going to come back someday.
Everybody wants me to do that radiation because they don't want me to die, but I really don't want to. I really don't.
Welcome to The Incurables. I'm Don Wildman. Imagine suffering for most of your life with an incredibly painful skin disease. Then, after years of bearing the pain, finding yourself attacked by a far more threatening foe. Betsy Dishel had eczema from the time she was a young child. This serious skin condition caused her nearly intolerable grief. Then, Betsy learned she had a relentless and deadly cancer slowly spreading inside her. To escape a terrifying fate, Betsy Dishel needed an alternative path to wellness. And with tremendous courage, she found her own way.
When you're dying from cancer, there are some miserable experiences, but finding a little bump in my neck, I really had no pain to it.
I was very relieved after the needle biopsy. Who knew that they just stuck the needle in the wrong place, which is the problem with needle biopsies.
This is a tumor that, in general, is uniformly fatal to the patient.
She was someone who I've been close to my entire life, so to think that it could be so bad that she would actually die and then not be there was horrible.
I think everybody else was more focused on the death and the fear of dying. And for me, the biggest fear for me would be the suffering part of it.
Any cancer that's associated with the throat, neck, vocal cords is a very difficult cancer.
It can grow in your head, and people have issues with eyes and nose and mouth and function of their tongue and ears, and it's just frightening.
In my experience, Betsy's cancer was a very difficult type of cancer to recover from.
By the time you diagnose it, it's already spread in ways we can't even see, well beyond where the original tumor was.
For me, this has taken an enormous toll.
What gets me the most, more than dying, is the thought of what if all these things start to happen, or what if all these things happen to me and I don't die, but I'm just more and more in pain and more miserable.
Born and raised on Manhattan's Upper West Side, Betsy Dishel had health issues from an early age.
She was a very sweet but not easy to soothe baby. She couldn't sleep very easily. She had lots of rashes, really bad diaper rash, which kids have, all babies have, but it was hard to clear up. It was significant.
In addition to rashes, Betsy was plagued by allergies.
She was allergic to cats, she was allergic to dust, she was allergic to mold, everything.
It was when she got a bit older that she had slight eczema.
I often had rashes around my mouth area, and I would get eczema around my eyes, and I'd always have a tube of cortisone that I could put on it.
Never comfortable living in the big city, Betsy went to college in upstate New York. Then she moved to Santa Cruz, California. She enjoyed the relaxed attitudes in the small beach town, but her skin disease erupted with ravaging intensity.
The eczema was not a really significant issue until after she had moved to Santa Cruz. And then the flare-up was enormous.
It was so crusted over, like it was so nasty in here, that if I turned my head, it would just split.
It was horrible. It covered her whole body. It was terrible for her to live with.
It feels like you have 1,000 red ants crawling around all over your body, eating you, and you're scratching them to get them off because they're eating you.
Betsy went to allergists and dermatologists, but their treatments only made her eczema symptoms worse.
She went to one treatment after another, both alternative medicine and regular medicine.
When conventional methods failed, Betsy turned to alternative therapies, but again, without success.
I was eating only organic food. I was doing acupuncture every week. I was taking vitamins. I was taking herbs. I was going to chiropractic. I was, doing everything that I possibly could think of to do.
She would try everything possible she tried everything to help make it better.
Nothing was helping me, and I just was getting sicker and sicker.
She was still living with that when she developed a lump on her neck. When Betsy first told me that she had a lump in her neck and she was going to doctors, I got very scared. I mean, who knows what that means?
And it started to get worse. It just was growing. It wasn't growing fast, but it was growing slow, but it was growing, it was getting bigger, and it was sort of, to me, the same way of like, this isn't really going to be going in a good direction here. Obviously, it's getting bigger.
One of the doctors who'd been following her finally said, let's just get it out. She hadn't wanted surgery. Let's just get it out.
So I went and scheduled to have it out, and it was supposed to be just a benign tumor.
Betsy checked into a local hospital to have the tumor removed.
I went and had the surgery, and they took it out.
The day Betsy was released from the hospital, Catherine packed her bags. She wanted to support Betsy during her recovery. Both women expected the trip to be uneventful.
It was benign as far as she knew. The tumor was benign.
Hours later, Catherine landed on Betsy's doorstep, unprepared for the news that was about to come.
She arrived and the phone rang when she came to the door. And I opened the door for her and answered the phone, and the doctor said, "You have cancer." And I just cried and cried, and Catherine was there, and we just cried and cried.
We spent the weekend together in shock.
Compounding the trauma, Betsy dreaded informing her parents. Her father had just recovered from a long and exhausting struggle with fourth-stage cancer. Her news would come as a terrible blow.
So it was just horrible having to call them and tell them that now Betsy had cancer as well.
My dad had just finished his treatment for prostate cancer, and they were celebrating his finish of that chemotherapy treatment. And then I got my diagnosis for cancer and had to call them and tell them that I had cancer.
I picked up the phone, and it was Betsy.
Hello?
She had just heard that it was malignant. I felt like I'd been sort of kicked. I couldn't believe this was happening to her. I felt so scared for her.
With Betsy's life clearly on the line, her family sought out the expertise of one of the nation's leading cancer surgeons.
Betsy has a relatively unusual tumor that most people will not have heard of. It's called an adenoid cystic carcinoma. It preferentially affects salivary glands. And so these tumors, what distinguishes them is that they have a tendency to crawl along nerves, and they advance relatively silently.
It travels and grows slowly. It travels along nerve pathways. It mostly lodges in soft tissue. There is no chemotherapy for it. Never has been.
When pathology reports revealed cancer at the edge of the removed tissue, Dr. Terrace recommended a second surgery.
We knew when we saw her in our tumor board that the tumor had been incompletely removed or incompletely resected, is what we said.
They didn't do the first surgery for cancer, so they didn't do it properly. So the first surgery was done improperly.
At the second operation, we removed the muscles immediately adjacent to where her original removal was, the nerves in the area, and then the lymph nodes well beyond that original area, trying to remove as much non-vital tissue as we could without hurting Betsy with our surgical resection.
Betsy's surgery was successful. They thought they got the margins, but you can never be sure.
There was indeed residual cancer within her neck, so we're very glad that we decided to go back in and do an additional operation.
While Dr. Terrace was pleased with the surgery, he now had to tell Betsy he was recommending radiation treatments.
The role of the radiation is to sort of mop up those residual tumor cells, and so we give a 6-week course of radiation, which can have substantial side effects.
I was miserable thinking about doing radiation. I was miserable thinking about having that radiated on my skin. I was concerned about my skin already having the eczema and it having the radiation on top of it.
She'd found out that the option was radiation, which only had a 30% chance of success and had all these awful side effects.
The radiation can prompt the development of atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries, and so patients can suffer a stroke many, many years down the road as a result of the impact of the radiation.
Everybody wants me to do that radiation because they don't want me to die, but I really don't want to. I really don't.
They gave no guarantee that that would prevent a recurrence. But they did guarantee to her, almost guarantee to her, that she would lose her taste buds, her ability to taste food, and that she would probably lose her teeth.
After the removal of her cancerous tumor, doctors urged Betsy to undergo radiation treatments. But the terrifying prospect of having her skin burned and the high likelihood she would lose her teeth made Betsy pause. With no guarantee radiation would be effective, Betsy Dishel boldly charted an alternative course.
There were very few things that I hadn't tried. That everybody and their mother came to tell me, have you tried this? Have you done that? Have you done this? Have you tried that? And I'd tried them all already. And there were only a few items that I hadn't tried, and one of them was macrobiotics.
When she decided to go with macrobiotics as the cure for her cancer, I was very scared.
At the very beginning of doing the macrobiotics, I was anxious.
She had lots of people telling her, and I'm sure just society saying, what, are you crazy?
Despite the doubts of others, Betsy believed she could rebuild her health through a whole grain, plant-based diet.
It wasn't expensive. It wasn't something I could buy in a pill form. It was go and buy food and prepare it and cook and eat at home, and you will find your balance. And that made sense.
Reading stories online made conventional cancer treatments sound frightening and risky by comparison.
I ended up reading a lot of really frightening things that people really did experience, but they're horrific, and they still haunt me to this day.
It seemed the least dangerous thing to try. Some of the other things seemed dangerous.
Feeling her life was at stake, Betsy traveled to Philadelphia to study and receive counseling from a leading macrobiotic practitioner, Denny Waxman.
When Betsy came, I knew this is a difficult problem, but I always try to, wipe that from my mind and just look at the person in front of me.
He asked me, why is it you want to do macrobiotics? And I said, because I don't want to chase the next thing that comes. And I remember him saying, that's a really good answer.
She had this real kind of spunk or spirit about her that, tell me what to do and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it the best I can. And that's exactly what she did.
The person that I am is, okay, I've decided to do this, now I'm going to really do it. Like, it felt to me like if I'm going to do this, I have to do it all the way because this cancer is not allowed to come back.
Betsy threw herself full force into learning how to prepare macrobiotic meals.
A meal means a grain and a separate vegetable dish. Without a grain, it's not a meal, and without a separate vegetable dish, it's not complete and balanced nutritionally.
It's based on naturally made whole grain food.
Whole grains, especially brown rice, form the backbone of every macrobiotic meal. Before it's cooked, brown rice is typically soaked for 12 to 18 hours.
If you start to soak brown rice, it starts to sprout and germinate. And in that process, it unleashes the nutrition in the rice.
In addition to a whole grain, at least one fresh vegetable is served at each meal.
And that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The grain and the separate vegetable dish are the basis of every meal. Beans are a very important part of the nourishment on the macrobiotic diet because they supply good quality protein and good quality minerals. We really recommend people eat leafy green vegetables every day, once or twice a day, and also beans on a daily basis. They really make sure they're getting the optimal nutrition.
The macrobiotic diet is rounded out with fruits, nuts, soups, sea vegetables, and for some people, fish. All foods are prepared fresh daily, and this can place high demands on a person following the diet.
The biggest problem with the macrobiotic diet and lifestyle is the inconvenience. Lots of people love the food, but they don't want to take the time to shop and cook for themselves.
It's a hard diet to do. I mean, physically demanding, you know, what you have to buy, what you have to chop, what you have to cook. And you can only eat it for 12 hours and then it's not got its nutrients anymore. So you have to keep cooking. You don't warm it up in the microwave and eat.
It was overwhelming sometimes to do that. And yet I also was like, I don't care because I'm not doing radiation.
From a macrobiotic perspective, Betsy had lifelong kidney deficiencies that led to eczema, allergies, and her cancer.
In Betsy's case, after years of having weak kidneys, then she developed skin disease. And because she didn't correct the problem, it just progressed. And then over time, it developed into a cancer.
To strengthen her kidneys, Denny had Betsy eat specific foods such as daikon and shiitake mushroom stews, nori and other sea vegetables, and a wide variety of lightly cooked garden vegetables.
What we're really trying to do is help people reawaken and activate their own natural healing ability.
In only a short time on the macrobiotic diet, Betsy experienced a noticeable improvement in her health.
Within 3 months of doing the macrobiotics, I felt a shift in my body.
Betsy was starting to develop this kind of deep inner confidence that, you know, she knew herself she was going to be well.
And within 6 months, all of my symptoms were gone.
Despite her amazing recovery from a rare and deadly cancer, Betsy lived with the fear her cancer might return.
I think in the beginning I wasn't living my life. I was like, I need proof. If I can't put anybody in the scenario of Betsy's going to be sick, she's going to have cancer, I don't want to start a family that way.
After extensive follow-ups, her doctors assured Betsy she was symptom-free.
When the doctor at Stanford said, we're not finding anything, you're doing great, and that's surprising to us, hearing that freed me up.
Liberated from her fears, Betsy embraced life. She married Samuel Sotelo in 2003, and the pair moved to Seattle with hopes of starting a family.
It's always been a dream of mine to have a baby, and I think I was terrified when I got the cancer diagnosis that was being taken away from me.
She was really excited when she got married and they were ready to try and have a baby.
Betsy felt blessed when she conceived, but she experienced nausea during her pregnancy. And with the demands of nurturing an infant son, Betsy fell off her diet.
When he was 3 months old, the eczema started to come out, and it came out pretty bad.
She was having a serious problem with fear, wondering, is this just eczema or is this something more?
It was really scary to have it come back because I hadn't had eczema in years.
She was just scared. She was scared the cancer was coming back. She didn't know what was going on.
Naturally, if the skin disease came back, then the cancer could follow.
Nobody can ever tell me that cancer's gone for forever.
If she let it go long enough, then most likely the cancer would return. I mean, this is the usual pattern.
I tried going back to doing my macrobiotic diet, but also was just overwhelmed with being a new mom. And then I called Denny, and over the phone I explained to him where it was and what was going on for me.
And then I was able to, point out to her what the problems were and give her some suggestions on things to do, and she did them, and things cleared up as they should.
What he told me to do, I did it, and it's gone, and I don't have it. And I had it pretty bad again with staph infection, and I don't have eczema.
It was a pretty short period of time where she called me up and like she was amazed. I can't believe it. Right, this is all clearing up and I feel much better.
When I was sick, I didn't have any freedom. I had no life. I basically was managing pain all the time. My life today is free.
Eating well and having a good, healthy diet is good for any type of tumor. You want to maintain your immune system, and so eating well is beneficial.
I think that the macrobiotics has been very helpful to her. It's something I really support.
Betsy is doing well today. She's doing very well.
Now she's cancer-free. Her eczema's gone. If her eczema were to come back, she knows what to do. She really knows what to do to keep herself healthy.
I live my life a healthy person. I have a life, and it's a life without eczema and no symptoms of cancer and no allergies.
Today, Betsy is enjoying life. Her eczema and allergies have completely disappeared. While doctors warn her type of cancer often returns, Betsy is confident she's found a way to keep a deadly killer at bay.